The history of salt, how a little crystal shaped the world. Salt. It's on every dining table, hiding in our snacks, seasoning our soups, and quietly making food taste better. But for thousands of years, this simple mineral has done far more than flavor fries. It has built empires, started wars, made fortunes, and even gave us the word salary. Yes, salary. Let's journey through history, dramatically but with a dash of humor, to see how a grain of salt shaped the world. 1. Salt, a crystal older than civilization. Long before anyone invented chocolate bars or smartphones, salt was a matter of survival. People needed it to preserve food, stay healthy, and keep their meals from tasting like boiled socks. Early human settlements appeared near rivers, seas, or salt lakes, not just for water, but for salt too. Civilizations like those in ancient Mesopotamia grew around areas where salt could be harvested easily. One of the world's first cities, Jericho, rose near the salty waters of the Dead Sea nearly 10,000 years ago. People gathered there not only to farm, but to trade salt. Imagine, Jericho wasn't built near a gold mine or a diamond field. It was built near a salt lake. Salt was precious partly because it wasn't easy to get. Natural salt flats and salt marshes exist only in certain climates where the sun is hot and the winds are steady enough to evaporate water. Mining salt was tough too. Ancient miners carved tunnels into rock salt deposits in the heat and dark. This scarcity made salt one of humanity's earliest treasures. 2. Salt empires and early trade. Because it was so difficult to get, salt quickly became more than a seasoning. It was currency. The Phoenicians, those expert sailors of the Mediterranean, built a maritime empire partly on salt. They traded high-quality sea salt for goods across North Africa and Europe. Salt's magic lay in its permanence. It doesn't spoil. You could load it on a ship, sail for weeks, and it would still be as salty as ever. This stability allowed the world's earliest trade routes to form around it. Along these salty highways, towns blossomed, markets buzzed, and cultures mingled. It's hard to imagine today, but a single sack of salt once had the buying power of gold. 3. All roads lead to salt and Rome. When people say all roads lead to Rome, they might as well say all salt roads lead to Rome. One of the first major Roman highways was the Via Salaria, or Salt Road, which originally connected Rome to the salt marshes near the mouth of the Tiber River, close to Ostia, and was later extended toward the Adriatic Sea. And salt wasn't just for flavoring Roman dinners. It was essential for preserving meat and fish, feeding armies, and running cities. Roman soldiers famously received a salarium, a salt allowance, to ensure they could buy this vital mineral. It's from salarium that the word salary comes. So no, legionnaires weren't literally marching around with blocks of salt in their pockets, except maybe at lunch. But their pay was directly tied to the value of salt. Salt, a reminder that empires march not only on their stomachs, but on their salt. 4. Salt wars. When dinner seasoning causes trouble. When something becomes this valuable, humans do what humans do best. They fight over it. Salt has caused more than one war. In medieval Italy, city-states like Venice and Ferrara clashed over salt pans. In 1540, the city of Perugia rebelled against the Pope's salt tax, leading to open conflict. Across the ocean centuries later, the El Paso Salt War, 1877 to 1878, erupted when businessmen tried to privatize salt lakes that had long been free for local communities. And during the U.S. Civil War, Union forces deliberately targeted Confederate salt works. No salt meant no preserved meat, and no preserved meat meant hungry armies, an invisible but powerful weapon. Even taxes on salt have toppled governments. In India, Mahatma Gandhi's 1930 Salt March was a quiet rebellion against British control of this everyday mineral. It became a turning point in the independence movement. 5. Salt in Asia and beyond. Salt wasn't just Europe's obsession. In ancient China, emperors built entire tax systems on salt, funding armies and great works. Control of salt was control of power. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, salt routes crossed deserts like arteries, feeding cities with both goods and stories. In Africa, caravans carried salt across the Sahara, trading it ounce for ounce with gold. Salt may not glitter like a jewel, but it built fortunes just the same. 6. Salt in culture, a lasting legacy. Salt didn't just shape economies and wars, it shaped language and culture. Worth your salt comes from the idea that a good worker or soldier deserved their salarium. Salad comes from the Roman habit of salting their vegetables. Take it with a grain of salt. Goes all the way back to Pliny the Elder in the 1st century AD, who wrote that a grain of salt made an unpleasant antidote more palatable. Over time, the phrase came to mean treat something with skepticism. And if you've ever knocked over a salt shaker, you might have tossed a pinch over your shoulder to undo the bad luck. A tradition rooted in medieval superstition. Salt has seeped into language the way it seeps into soup. Quietly, completely, and everywhere. 7. From treasure to tabletop. So how did salt go from empire builder to something we grab in paper packets at fast food counters? Technology. Modern mining and industrial salt production made it cheap and abundant. Refrigeration reduced its role in preserving food. What once caused wars is now an afterthought at dinner. But that doesn't mean it's less important. We still need salt to live. It flavors our food, keeps our bodies balanced, and, whether we realize it or not, connects us to thousands of years of human history. 8. A pinch of history. The story of salt is the story of us. Empires rose and fell over it. Roads were built for it. Armies marched because of it. People rebelled because of it. And today it sits quietly on your table, pretending to be ordinary. But every grain of salt is a tiny crystal of history, an ancient reminder that sometimes the most powerful things in the world don't sparkle. Like gold, they just taste good.
It's time to study new words in context. 1. Salt flat. Definition: a flat, wide area of land covered with salt and other minerals, usually left behind when a body of salty water dries up. Example: the explorers crossed a vast salt flat that shimmered white under the desert sun. 2. Salt marshes. Definition: low, wet coastal lands that are regularly flooded by seawater and contain salt-tolerant plants. Example: birds gathered in the salt marshes to feed on the small fish and insects living there. 3. Maritime. Definition: related to the sea, ships, or ocean-based trade and travel. Example: Venice became a powerful maritime republic because of its strong navy and sea trade. 4. Mingled. Definition: mixed or combined together, often describing things like sounds, feelings, or groups of people. Example: laughter and music mingled in the air as the festival began. 5. Currency. Definition: a system of money used in a country or anything accepted as a medium of exchange. Example: before coins were invented, salt and spices were sometimes used as currency. 6. Might as well. Definition: a phrase used to suggest that one choice is as good as another, often when no better option exists. Example: it's raining outside, so we might as well stay in and read. 7. Legionnaire. Definition: a soldier who served in an ancient Roman legion. Today, the term can also mean a member of a military group. Example: each legionnaire carried heavy armor, weapons, and a shield as he marched across the empire. 8. Salt pans. Definition: shallow, flat areas or pools where seawater is left to evaporate so that salt can be collected. Example: workers harvested salt crystals from the salt pans after several days of strong sunlight. 9. Toppled. Definition: fell suddenly or caused to fall, often referring to governments, leaders, or objects losing balance. Example: the king's greed and heavy taxes eventually toppled his rule. 10. Antidote. Definition: a substance that stops or reduces the effects of a poison. Figuratively, something that counteracts a harmful influence. Example: laughter can be a good antidote to stress. 11. Palatable. Definition: pleasant to taste or acceptable to the mind. Agreeable. Example: the dish was simple, but surprisingly palatable after a long day of travel. 12. Salt shaker. Definition: a small container with holes on top, used for sprinkling salt onto food. Example: he reached for the salt shaker to add a pinch of salt to his soup. 13. Seeped. Definition: slowly passed through or leaked into something, like liquid through a small space. Example: water seeped through the cracks in the wall after the heavy rain. 14. Afterthought. Definition: something added or considered later, often too late to be fully effective or planned. Example: the safety measures seemed like an afterthought, rather than part of the original design. 15. Preserve. Definition: to keep something safe from harm, decay, or loss. To maintain in its original or good condition. Example: people in ancient times used salt to preserve meat and fish for long journeys.
Comprehension questions. 1. Why was salt so important to early human civilizations? Answer: salt was essential for preserving food, maintaining health, and improving taste. Because it was scarce and difficult to obtain, it became a valuable resource that shaped where people settled. 2. What made salt a valuable trade item in ancient times? Answer: salt doesn't spoil, making it easy to store and transport long distances. Its scarcity and necessity made it as valuable as gold in many regions. 3. What role did the Via Salaria play in ancient Rome? Answer: the Via Salaria, or Salt Road, was built to bring salt from the Tiber marshes to Rome. It later extended toward the Adriatic Sea, helping supply the city and army with salt and supporting trade. 4. What does the word salary have to do with salt? Answer: Roman soldiers received a salarium, a salt allowance to buy salt. The word salarium is the root of our modern word salary, showing how vital salt was to everyday life. 5. How did salt contribute to conflicts and wars? Answer: salt's value led to taxes, control struggles, and wars, such as the Salt Wars in Italy, the El Paso Salt War in Texas, and strategic attacks on salt works during the U.S. Civil War. 6. How did salt influence India's independence movement? Answer: Mahatma Gandhi led the Salt March in 1930 to protest British control over salt. This peaceful act became a key moment in India's fight for independence. 7. Why was controlling salt such a powerful tool for governments like those in ancient China? Answer: by taxing and controlling salt, rulers could raise revenue to fund armies and projects, giving them both economic and political power. 8. What does the phrase "worth your salt" mean, and where does it come from? Answer: it means someone is competent or deserving of their pay. It comes from the Roman salarium, the allowance given to soldiers for salt. 9. Where does the expression "take it with a grain of salt" come from? Answer: it originates with Pliny the Elder in ancient Rome, who wrote that a grain of salt made a bitter antidote easier to take. Over time, it came to mean treating something with skepticism. 10. How has the role of salt changed from ancient times to today? Answer: salt once determined trade routes, wealth, and power. Today, modern production has made it cheap and common, though it remains essential for health and flavor. 11. What factors made salt scarce in early history? Answer: natural salt flats were only found in certain climates, and mining salt was labor-intensive and dangerous. This limited supply increased its value. 12. What is the overall message of the article about salt? Answer: salt has played a major role in shaping human civilization, from trade and language to war and culture. Though ordinary today, every grain carries thousands of years of history.